Hello. Hello, today is November 8th, Wednesday, November 8th, 2017. Um, it's going to be a quick video. I want to talk about what's going on with Meek Mills, artist from Philadelphia, hip hop artist, very talented young man. And he's just recently been locked up for violating his probation. And this isn't the first time he was locked up or had different violations um, since he's been on this probation. He's had house arrest before, and he was locked up for about 8 months previously. And supposedly he's going to have to do 2 years to 4 years, 2 to 4 years. And it's really not clear on what he did wrong to violate. Now, everyone knows that he did get two arrests recently this year, but both of those cases were thrown out. One was because he was doing donuts on a bike, or what do they call it, popping wheelies, 12 o'clock, whatever, riding a bike in New York City in some restricted areas where he wasn't supposed to be riding bikes, dirt bikes, whatever the case, whatever the facts is with that particular case. The fact remains that it was thrown out. He didn't have to, do any type of time for that. He didn't get found guilty for that. Maybe he had to do some type of community service or something, but he pretty much got a smack on the hand for that. It wasn't like it was a felony or a new charge that was being pursued by the New York judicial system. I'm not sure what airport he was in where he got into a fight with a young man and a few members of Meek Mill's entourage. Probably some of his friends, maybe some of the Dream Chasers was with him, and they had words with a young man, and a fight broke out. Now, I did see a video that this young man that they had a fight with admitted that he swung on them first. He pretty much seemed like he was somebody that was a hater, and his lies. It was a bunch of lies with this particular story. One lie was that he asked for an autograph, and they were rude and disrespectful to him, and words was exchanged, and a fight broke out. I know I seen another video where he made it seem as though he never wanted no autograph. He wasn't dick eating them. He just, wanted to talk shit to them, and a fight broke out. This dude is an opportunist. He just wanted to get some notoriety off of Meek Mill's name. You got people that will deliberately try to get into altercations and fights with entertainers just so they could try to sue them or make a name for themselves or whatever. It's pretty crazy if you ask me, especially messing with somebody that has the type of name that Meek Mill has in the streets, or the type of name that his friends that he associates himself with have. So it's kind of risky. Whatever the case may be, this dude is on video saying that he swung first on Meek Mills in that particular incident. So that was thrown out. And, Meek Mill and his friends, Dream Chasers, entourage, whatever they want to call them, they didn't have to do any time, or they wasn't fighting no case due to that altercation. So now his judge that he is under probation with in Philadelphia requested to see him a few months back, I'm assuming, or however it was, a few weeks ago. She requested to see him, and her wanting to see him is due to the fact that he did have two arrests this year. So this is just pretty much normal, what usually goes on when you're under parole or probation. The judge can also always request to see you. Maybe the probation officer or the DA. Somebody requests that you get brought in, and maybe you have to answer on what's been going on with you. You have to, And in those situations, sometimes you do get arrested. You know, a lot of times you go home, depending on what the circumstances is. A lot of people believe Meek Mill should have went home. I believe Meek Mill should have went home the other day. I had this judge before. I've stood in front of this judge that Meek Mill has before. I was under her probation before. And the thing about it is, this was in the 90s. I didn't even take her probation. What I took was, and this was all new to me. I was never no person that got into a lot of trouble, whatever. But this is something that I pled guilty. I got into a fight years ago, and I with two dudes. That's another story. But I fought two dudes years ago, and they pressed charges on me. And you know, I took parole. I was eligible for parole because I did get arrested. I was explained. I thought parole was for people that did like a lot of years, and you know, you out on parole. You could actually spend 2 weeks in jail, and you know, when your case is resolved, if you do get found guilty, you don't have to do any jail time. You could take parole if it's offered to you. My attorney at the time broke it down and explained it to me that you could take probation or you could take parole. He said the difference is with parole, if you do any violations, you only can get whatever time is left. So if you get 3 years parole and 2 years into the parole you violate with a hot urine or something like that, they only can give you what's left to change. You may have a year left to do. With probation, I was always told that you may have 3 years of probation, and you get down to your last week and you turn in a hot urine, they can give you start the 3 years over again or lock you up for 3 years. So it's crazy the way it's the difference between parole and probation. I don't think anybody should ever want probation, but I think sometimes it's not. Some people aren't eligible to get it, or it's not offered. It's not on the table. And with me, I was fortunate that it was on the table to get parole. Now, had he had parole, Meek Mills, I think, would have been done with this whole case, and you know, he still wouldn't have to deal with this judge. But the point I was trying to make is I had this judge, and she made me do an extra year of parole, you know, say probation, parole, because of fees that I didn't pay. I owed some type of court costs or court fees or whatever, and I was refusing to pay it. Ignorant, because she could have locked me up. She made me do an extra year of parole because I did not pay the fees when I was supposed to get off initially. And me being ignorant to the law, I actually could afford it because she shouldn't have been able to do that because I was on parole. I wasn't on probation or whatever. Her thing was she wasn't letting me off parole because I didn't have the money. I didn't pay the money. I think if I would have paid the money that day, I wouldn't have to do the extra year. But I said, okay, and walked out of there. And before I knew it, another year went by, and I had to go back in. And I had some of the money, but I still didn't pay all the money. I don't even remember what the amount was. But I was a younger guy back then. I didn't really care. And I knew I wasn't going to get in trouble in the streets because I wasn't doing anything on the streets. I wasn't selling drugs. I wasn't carrying weapons. It was rare that I would get into a fight, you know what I mean? So I wasn't worried about getting into fights with anybody. I didn't really have beef with nobody. So I wasn't worried about being on parole or probation, really, you know. Back then I did smoke weed, but I wasn't even getting drug tested while I was on parole because my parole officer asked me, you know, the first time she met me, do you do drugs? I was like, no. I was like, no, I don't do any drugs. So she never asked me again. You know, never wanted no urine or anything. I think the only reason I got away with that is because I didn't come off like some type of guy that needed to be drug tested every other month. You know, I didn't come off like I needed to have a piss test. You know, I was clean cut. You know, I spoke well for somebody that was my age and from where I was from in North Philly. So I came off like, you know, it was believable. He doesn't do smoke weed or do any hard drugs, anything like that. So it wasn't like it was requested of me. So I pretty much breezed through parole. Everybody doesn't really have that luxury, you know. Usually, a lot of guys violate, if nothing else, with hot urines. Um, a lot of times they get new charges. You know, it could be domestic. You can get in a fight with your girlfriend. Literally, argument that's misconstrued as a fight. Maybe a shoving match. She shoved me, I shoved her back. Now somebody's witnessed it, called cops. A family member or a neighbor. I've know people that's happened to. That has happened to me before. I've gotten in domestic situations that really shouldn't have been police involved, but it came to that. You know what I mean? You have to explain yourself and humble yourself and just really distance yourself from certain women because they can get you in a whole lot of trouble. So as men and women, but as men, there's a lot of ways where if you're on parole or probation, you will get sucked into the system. It's not always good for someone, especially if you're going to be around certain elements. It's not always good for someone to have parole or probation. You're going to be no good on these streets. If you know everything that got you a case, you're going to still be involved in that, and you're taking this probation, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to be right back in the system for years. You may have been better off just getting a sentence of maybe 3 or 4 years and just getting it over with, and sitting for 3 or 4 years than, having to do maybe 12 years of your life off and on, back and forth, in the jail system, and they got you. It's weird like that, but it seems like that's what's going on with Meek. Maybe he'd have been better off. He'd have just, had to do 5 years when it's in the beginning and came home and maybe did parole, and then it only would have been maybe a year or 2 of parole left. You know what I mean? And he would have been done with it. He might have been done before his career even took off. Who knows? I don't know all the details of his case. I do know what's going on right now is unfair and it's unjust, and everybody in Philly, especially people that really had love for him, is looking at this case. And I know that judge, like I said, I knew her personally. I stood in front of her. I know she don't play. And there's a lot of people saying she's taking this case really personal. It's real bad when a district attorney isn't pushing for you to be incarcerated. The district attorney did not push for Meek Mill to do any new jail time. His parole officer did not push for him to do any new jail time. So when those two things right there are facts, but you still get sent to jail, it's usually because the judge has a personal vendetta against you. She's something that you just rubbed her the wrong way and she just couldn't wait. She may have known for a while, I'm going to get that ass. Next time you in front of me, you know what I mean? I don't care what it is. Oh, you was popping wheelies in Central Park in New York? You got arrested? Oh, okay. 4 years. They threw it out. So, I'm sorry, just 4 years. You got arrested. You know what I mean? Oh, some young boy came up to you popping fly in the airport, Chicago, wherever it was, and he threw punches at you. You had to defend yourself, but, you got arrested. Sorry. You should just been a victim in that and just let young boy beat you up. That should have been the story, that you just got beat up by some young boy in the airport and did nothing. Went to the hospital. You defended yourself. Sorry, now you have to do 4 years. Like, that's basically what's going on with him. And, a lot of people in Philly is hot right now. You know what I mean? A lot of people in the industry, not just Philly. I heard Jay-Z spoke up about it. A lot of entertainers, athletes, people, music business, actors. A lot of people are really paying attention to this and really, not feeling the outcome of what's going on with him. I've read things and heard people make comments that people don't even care. Some people are hating on Meek a little bit and saying he wrote it on himself. You can't really say that, especially under this. Like, I could see if he really did something like, like he initiated a fight, or he was in New York popping wheelies and hurt somebody, ran into somebody's car, you know what I mean? Or, was on a police chase in New York on a bike. It wasn't nothing crazy. It was things that can happen to you, to anybody. You know what I mean? Certain things can happen to anybody. As a black man, we destined to probably get into a fight every now and then because somebody's an asshole and provokes us, you know. So from that standpoint, I'm really, feel for the boy Meek, and I hope his lawyer can appeal this, and maybe that judge, maybe she was just playing. I don't think so. Maybe she just really want him to just sweat for a few weeks, and she let him out. She requested to see him and just let him out because she wanted him just to, feel it for a minute. But, it don't look like it. I don't know. Hopefully it works out for him, Again, it's November the 8th, Wednesday. Hope everybody's having a safe, good time, wherever you at, work, home, watching this video. Be careful out there, be safe, be smart. Peace.